Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Leadership in Crisis. My name is Kevin and I'll be your host. I work in the capacity building team here at the Australia Council and look forward to spending some time with you today. I would like to start by warmly acknowledging the traditional owners of countries throughout Australia, including where you are today. I pay my deep respect to elders past, present, and future. Currently on screen is a blue PowerPoint holding slide with text, several video boxes with guest speakers and Auslan interpreters. I, the host, am a fair-skinned man with brown hair and wearing a grey shirt in front of a black background. Welcome, everyone. I'll soon introduce you to our speaker, Daniel Murray. Daniel will be guiding us through the topic of leadership adaptation. This webinar series has been developed to support you during a time of intense change. They are bite-sized and will be delivered twice weekly throughout the coming months. The sessions will be led by some amazing speakers and will tackle a range of topics, including how we need to adapt our leadership, our arts practices, and our digital capabilities. I invite you to register to as many as you can. And before I hand over to Daniel, there's just a couple of housekeeping things that we want to cover before we start. Firstly, live captioning is available via the system Stream Text, and you can access this through the link that's currently in the chat section, and you can access the chat through the bar at the bottom of your screen. Please note that we've set the default setting of the view to gallery view so that everyone can view the guests and the Auslan interpreters. But note that if you're on a mobile device, you can only see the main person speaking. Next, we would love to hear from you. If you've got a question, feel free to post those in the Q&A tab again at the bottom of your screen. We will be answering these questions at the end of Daniel's session. And if we don't get to your question and it's urgent, please send us an email and we will get back to you as soon as we can. We may also invite a question to be asked live, and please note that these will be recorded. The discussion today will be around the topic of this webinar. And if you have any other urgent inquiries, please contact us separately and we can direct you to the right information or the right person here at the Australia Council. And if at any point you need any help or support, just raise your hand. Again, you can use this by using the hand raise feature in Zoom, again at the bottom of your screen, or just send us a quick email. Lastly, a recording will be available of the session in the coming days, and you'll receive a separate email with the link to these. To stay up to date with the Australia Council's response to COVID-19, programs that we run and support that's available, please visit our website at australiacouncil.gov.au. Also, there's a dedicated Facebook group that we've set up for those who are particularly interested in digital adaptation and further support and discussions. I encourage you to join that group. Currently on screen is a PowerPoint slide to introduce our guest speaker. There's text and an image of a man with red hair shot in portrait format. Now, I'm very pleased to introduce today's speaker, Daniel Murray. Daniel is from Empathic Consulting. He's a strategist, a facilitator, and a speaker. And Daniel wrote a very insightful article recently on leadership through crisis. And I really encourage you to have a read. Someone will post a link to that in the coming days, or we'll send a link in our follow-up email on that to you. Now, Daniel, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate you being with us. And really, without further ado, I might hand over to you. And I believe that you also have some slides to share.
Yes, let me just bring those up. There we go. Can you see those now or not? Not yet. Let me try one more time.
There we go.
Brilliant. Wonderful, thank you, and thanks everyone for making the time to spend this afternoon through this important and challenging time we're all trying to navigate. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land. I was born in Toowoomba, the land of the Djibouti people, and I encourage everyone to get in touch with the land that they're on, or they were born in, or both, ideally. Let me get started. This is me at my best. This is me as a professional speaker standing on stage late last year in front of almost 2,000 people presenting on the topics that I talk about. And like many of you, this is something that I can't do right now. As you could probably imagine, and like many of us are going through, the range of conferences and events, the times that I got to connect with large groups of people has been put on hold for now. And this makes it a really tough time for so many people in our communities, so many people in our businesses, in our personal lives are really challenged with this. So before we dive into a whole bunch of content, I just want you to stop for a moment, pause, and just reflect on how you're coping. How is this sitting with you, and how are you feeling? And what I want to invite you to do is get yourself prepared for the session we're about to have by thinking about this simple little framework, have, do, be. Now, the order of have, do, be is critically important. You see, when we're feeling helpless, we tend to think in this order. We sort of think, well, if only I have all the things that I'll need, then I'll be able to do the things that I want to do, and then I'll be happy. The next interpretation we have is that of the fighter, and the fighter battles, don't they? They do things. They think, I'm going to do lots of things, and when I do these things, then I'll have all the stuff that I want, and then I'll be who I want to be. I'll be happy. I'll be content. And actually, what we need today is more leaders. And what leaders do is they start with be. Who are they going to be? How are they going to show up? They take ownership and control of that state, and that informs and empowers them to be able to do the things that need to be done now so that we can all have what we need. And so I want you to take just a moment to reflect on how are you at the moment, and who are you going to be for this afternoon? What state are you going to be in? Because that state will determine the information you receive, the ideas you take away, and the actions that you'll be able to take next. The objective of this session today will really be around three sort of ideas here. I want to share some ideas with you. I want to answer as many questions as we can. But what I really want to do is help you take away some actions, some things that you can put in place to start to help lead through this crisis. It's my intention today to serve you as best I can. And that's the state that I'll be taking for this session today. My B will be in service of you. And I'm really happy to answer as many questions as we can, and any follow-up questions you have, feel free to reach out. The first thing I want to do, though, is I really want to start with people. I want us to start with a focus as a leader in crisis of thinking about others, thinking about the people who are really important to us and how we can help them. You see, this is more challenging than it might seem. In my career, I've been a management consultant. I've done a lot of work in large and small businesses and worked with a whole range of different industries. And what I've found is that business is complicated, but the people are complex. And this differentiation between these two words might seem trivial, but let me explain. You see, I did a mathematics degree, which is incredibly boring, and you don't tell people that at barbecues because they stop talking to you. But what I learned through my maths degree is that while maths is complicated, it follows certain rules. You see this equation on the screen, it looks terrifying, but actually when you understand how it works, it's not complex. It doesn't change, it doesn't do different things at different times. It's relatively stable. People, on the other hand, well, not so much. You send a guy to the shops to get salad dressing, you have no idea what he's coming home with. And we all have this challenge, right? We make a list, we know we're going to get these 5 items, and then we end up walking away with a trolley with a whole bunch of different things. And the whole idea of humans here is that tiny little things can have a huge influence on our lives or no influence at all. And large things can have a very large influence on our life or no influence at all. And everything in between is possible. So the thing that's different here is the world of complex is far more difficult to understand. And as humans, when we're trying to work with each other, this is a world we need to try and understand and grapple with. The underlying view from most basic world economics is that individuals are logical. We're logical, rational, we make prudent, logical decisions to maximize our utility. And what's hilarious about this is when I ask economists if they believe this to be true, they absolutely are adamant that it is not. But we have to remember this is the basis for a lot of the ways we set up our organizations and businesses. And I want to challenge this right now, because the activities that we see and that the things that people are doing in the community now are clearly not overly rational. That's not to say that they don't have meaning and they're not based on something. But people at the moment are acting out of fear and aggression and anxiety and all of these emotions that are welling up. And what we know is that logic and rationality is not necessarily the key to what drives humans. And what I want to invite you to do is practice empathy. And the way I think about empathy is not necessarily the way that some others may think about it. You see, in my view, empathy is understanding why people do what they do. As simple and as straightforward as that. I want to challenge some ideas here. Often people say that empathy is walking in someone else's shoes. But the challenge here is that when I walk in someone else's shoes, I still have my experience of being in their position. And with empathy, what I really want to do is understand their experience. I want to understand what's going on for people. I want to understand how to get inside this complex web that of decision-making that's going on and understand why people do what they do. This photo is my daughter, and she's a constant mystery of me trying to work out why she does what she does every single day. You see, the first thing we need to acknowledge about all people, all humans, is that emotions actually drive the basis for all decisions. We have this amazingly illogical view that we're actually rational and we do things by justifying rational causes. And the reality is we're not as rational as we think. We're quite very often we are post-rational. We make a decision based on emotion, and when we're asked or challenged as to why we made that decision, we come up with a whole lot of logical, rational excuses, most of which are a complete lie. And so what we need to do when we're trying to understand people is, first of all, look for emotions and understand what's going on. And this is an area where I believe the arts has a great advantage over a lot of other sectors, in that we often find ourselves more in touch with the emotive sides of our lives. And we actually have a great deal of value to offer in this space of helping organizations, businesses, governments, and our communities grapple with these fluxes in emotions that we're currently facing. And so what I want to challenge you to do here is really ask not what you can get from others, but what do others need from you? What can you provide as a value to people in this time of need? And through this session, I really want to unpack some of these key things that are going to change the way that you look at the way you can serve people in the community. The first thing that we know is that all people aren't the same. And let me give you a little story that I wrote. I wrote this kid's book a year or so ago, and it was mainly based on experiences I've had in big businesses, not very positive ones. So let me share this little story and maybe you can pick out the meaning yourself. There was a monkey and a rhino, and they lived under this big tree. Now, they had a very good partnership going on. You see, the monkey would climb to the top of the tree and pick the young leaves, and they were the favorite for the rhino. And the rhino, he would chase off the lions when they'd come around to try and attack the monkey. And so this partnership was quite a lovely one. One day, a large storm came and it hailed. It had never hailed before, but the hail belted down. And now, after the hail had passed, The monkey was lying there, battered and bruised, and he said to the rhino, "Rhino, are you okay after that storm?" The rhino replied, "Sure, I'm okay, no problem." The monkey said, "But I'm so hurt. How come you're okay?" The rhino said, "Well, I'm big and tough. I've got thick skin." The monkey said, "Well, what do I need to do?" And the rhino said, "It's quite simple. You just need to toughen up and get thick skin like me." So the monkey went away and he found some mud and clay. He put it on his arms, legs, body. He baked in the sun. And as he was laying there baking in the sun, the rhino was a little frustrated that he couldn't climb to the top of the tree anymore, but he thought, at least he'll be safe from this storm. Sadly, the next day, a storm rolled in, the rain came down, washed off the mud and the clay, and our poor monkey found himself again in the same position. Once more, the monkey said to the rhino, "Rhino, what am I going to do? These hailstones are really hurting me." And again, the rhino said, "All you've got to do is toughen up and get thick skin like me." Dejected now, the poor monkey went and sat in the tree. And as he was sitting there in the tree next to this little hole, a squirrel popped out of the hole in the tree. The monkey said to the squirrel, "Squirrel, are you okay after that storm?" And the squirrel said he was fine. And the monkey said, "But do you have thick skin? You don't look like you have thick skin." The squirrel replied, "Oh, Mr. Monkey, we can't all have thick skin. It doesn't work that way. You see, I'm small and I can hide in this small hole in the tree. Now, what we need to do is find how you can survive through this storm and what's the way you're going to get by." Now the monkey went away and he thought about it and he spoke more with the squirrel, and together they devised a plan. And when the next storm was rolling around, the monkey walked over and he sat underneath the belly of his friend the rhino and waited out the storm. You see, in these times of crisis, we all have to find our own way to get by. It's not going to be the same for everyone. And I spent too long in corporate world seeing rhinos tell others that they need to toughen up. I saw too many people say, "This is the only way to get by. This is what you need to do," with all good intentions, but sadly not helping in the way that people really needed. And so what we need to do as leaders in this time of crisis is help people find their way to get through this challenge, help people find their way to survive. And it's not going to be the same for everyone. You see, one size does not fit all when it comes to leadership. And what we need to be able to do in these times is be the adaptive leader who can adjust and change the way in which we see the world to make sure we're able to support others who are going through tough times. Now, we all will go through tough times, but my suggestion to you as a leader is it's your job to be the one to corral people together. I often think in these times, you see some people act like an echidna. They roll up into a ball, they become prickly just to try and save themselves. And for everyone else around them, they feel their sharp spikes. And what we need to do, and what I invite you to do, is be the leader who's more like the shepherd. Be the leader who brings people together, who supports people in the way that they need. We have this horrible view sometimes in business that, look, if you can't measure it, it doesn't matter. And I had this conversation with a CEO once. He said, "Listen, Daniel, if you can't measure it, it doesn't matter." And I said, "Well, that's interesting, John. Do you love your wife?" And he said, "Well, of course I do. You know I do." I said, "That's fantastic." I said, "And do you measure it? Is there a graph somewhere I can check out? And if you did measure it and you got a score, let's say it was 83, and you told me that score, would that give me any understanding of the depth of your relationship?" And the answer is, of course, no. You see, what we tend to do too often is we look at the material world, the tangible elements that we can control, and we think that this is all the stuff that matters. And the reality is there's a whole intangible world of emotions and relationships. There's a world of culture and values that is very difficult to put into numbers. And often when we do try and put it into numbers, we lose all interpretation of what they mean. We need to know, and at this time, particularly for the arts more than ever, that numbers do not equal value. Now, I'm going to apologize This is my backside cycling up the last parts of Mont Ventoux. Anyone out there who's a keen middle-aged man in Lycra like me, or a keen cyclist, you'll know that Mont Ventoux is one of the most spectacular cycling routes in the world. It's revered as one of those places that the Tour de France is won and lost. And for me on this day, it was the end, or the culmination of a great dream. This would be my greatest achievement in my pathetic cycling career. And what I did, of course, I wasn't alone when I was cycling up this mountain. I had my smartwatch, I had a GoPro, I had a GPS tracker, I had a heart rate monitor. I had all of this equipment to capture all the data, because like other middle-aged men in Lycra, we like to collect all our data, and we like to put it up on a website and compare ourselves with everyone else. And what struck me when I looked at the numbers, when I read through the data, was that my data was completely unremarkable. In fact, there was almost nothing worth noting about my data. It was, if you were looking through all the people who'd cycled up Mont Ventoux over the last few weeks, months, years, mine would have been boring, middle of the road, nothing to see here. And what it reminds me, and it's a thing that we always need to remind ourselves about business and the way in which we work with others, is that numbers does not equal value. There are so many things that are so valuable to us which are not numeric. And understanding the value we have to offer doesn't come down to a spreadsheet. In times like these, it's easy for us to think about our people as numbers, as FTE, as costs on a spreadsheet. And we need to know that this is not doing us or them any favors. Numbers do not equal value, and leaders through times of crisis need to be able to understand what real value is. You see, it's the leaders who are here to help us be our best and carry us through these challenges that we really need right now. We need our people to be firing. We need our people to be engaged and excited. We need our people to be productive like never before, because through these times of crisis, every little bit counts. We need to make sure that we're there for them and they are there for us. And this is how this game works. We as leaders need to inspire and motivate our people to be their best. And when they are their best, then we as a leader become our best. Let me give you an example that happened many years ago in business. Continental Airways in the US was struggling a little bit. They just entered their second bankruptcy, and the CEO at the time had armed bodyguards who would follow him around because staff would often try and harass him. That CEO wasn't doing a very good job, and I can assure you the culture wasn't great there. The board let that CEO go and brought in a new gentleman, this guy named Gordon Bethune. When Gordon took over, to say he transformed the business is a huge understatement. Gordon took Continental from last in every single metric for an airline to the best airline in the world 6 years in a row. He took their share price from $2 a share to $50 a share, and he merged them with United and became the biggest airline group in the world. Now, a lot of people wanted to understand how he made this magic happen, and a reporter said to Gordon one day, "Gordon, we noticed that you're an airline mechanic in the Navy. Was it your deep understanding of planes that helped you, turn this ship around?" Gordon said no. No, he said, "I just knew how fast I could fix a plane when I wanted to fix a plane versus how fast I could fix a plane when I didn't want to fix a plane. And that gap, well, that's where all the money was." And what we need to remember in these times is, no, it's not all about money, and it's not all about the metrics, but it's all about helping people be at their best. We need to think about this line, this gap between, are our people at their best, doing what they want to do, being who they want to be? Do they really want to fix the plane? And as a leader, this is not a nice to have, this is your job. This is your responsibility. You would not believe the number of project managers who I work with I ask them, how do you create your spreadsheets and your Gantt charts? And they tell me all of the calculations. And I say, great, well, what if the people don't want to do it? And they look at me blankly and say, well, there isn't a space in the spreadsheet for that, so we ignore it. My challenge to you is we ignore that at our peril. And what we need to be careful here is to understand our people and understand where they are on that line. Our people are suffering and in crisis. And I know we're feeling it all too, but our job as a leader is to help our people be at their best and serve them in this time of their great need. You see, when your people have this level of commitment, work's more than personal, it's purposeful. It's meaningful. It's what gets them out of bed in the morning. And in these tough times, it can be so easy to think, oh, why bother? I'm not sure what's going to happen. You see, often people say humans hate change, and I'm not so sure that that's perfectly true. I believe what we fear is uncertainty. People fear the unknown, particularly when it's out of our control. We tend to love change when we're in control of it. Few people are upset and disappointed about moving into their brand new home or buying a new car. It's something exciting. What we need to know, though, is our people need commitment and certainty through this terribly uncertain time. And that commitment comes from you. See, there has never been a better time ever to capture your the customers of your competitors. There has never been a better and more important time to build trust with your stakeholders. There's never been a better time to hire the best talent in the market, the ones that are being let go and people who are floating into the ether. And there's never been a better time for you to show you're a leader worth following. You're a leader here to support those in need. You're the leader who's going to make a difference in the lives of others. It's at these times of crisis, that the opportunities emerge. And make no mistake, there are lots of opportunities here. I know there's dark times, but the trust that you build with people during this time, those people you can serve, those people you can help, those people you can work with to find a way, those become your trusted advisors. Those become the people who want to follow you in the future. And so I really encourage you to look at this challenge as an opportunity as well. Who are some of those wonderful, talented people who aren't being treated and served by their leaders, who might need someone to reach out? Now, how can you use this time to offer or understand their needs? Don't offer them the same thing as everyone else. Understand what their needs are and how you can play a role in supporting people through this time. There has never been a better time to show you're a leader worth following. And part of this is around how do we build a culture within our people? How do we cut costs without killing our culture? How do we make sure we support people during this time? And I work with a lot of organizations in good and bad times on building a high performance culture. What I found is there's some simple elements that we need to think about putting together here to help build the culture that's going to get us through this current challenge. And once this challenge is passed, help us accelerate and grow again. Those simple elements start with trust. In these tough times, I want you to reflect less on who do you trust and more on who trusts you. Who relies on you, who needs you, and how are you serving these people in their darkest times? Building trust is about having open conversations, being willing to sit and listen, and doing things that are hard decisions to make now, but are important decisions that are going to support everyone. The second thing we need to do is make sure everyone has a deep understanding of what's really going on. We don't need more leaders who are trying to sit away in a locked room and come up with a perfect answer, because I'm here to tell you there isn't one. There is no panacea for this terrible economic challenge and global challenge we're facing right now. And we need more and more people looking at this challenge and trying to help us support. We need more people to be thinking about what's going on and having the information. And so building understanding in this time is critically important. And the last thing we need is actually to come at this with curiosity. We need to be looking at this challenge, this problem, with a sense of curiosity and wonder. What else might be true? What else could we do differently? And as a leader, you need to be on the front foot and being the inspiration for your people to ask those questions openly and honestly. You see, what I've found is when we have trust and understanding, curiosity and understanding, that's when we get real innovation. When we actually have more people asking more questions and who have a deeper understanding of what the problems are, what the vision is, and how we're going to get there, innovation starts to arise organically through our business. Innovation is not something you build in a locked room. It's fostered in the front line of all of our organizations. The second thing I've found is when you have trust and understanding, you can move faster. Being agile in this time is absolutely critically important. Being responsive to the needs that are changing so rapidly, being able to communicate and share with people as things are moving fast. And agility doesn't come through going faster. It comes through having a trusted environment and having everyone on the same page. If you walk into a meeting and people can't make decisions, it's often because they don't trust each other enough or they don't have all the information. We need to cover these things off so we can move quickly, because that speed and agility allows us to take advantage of the opportunities when they do arise. And the last thing we need now more than ever is constructive challenge. We need to be open to challenging each other. We need to be open as leaders to being challenged. This is not the time for autocratic, chauvinistic, mechanical leadership or dictatorial leadership. This is the time for collaboration. This is the time for curiosity and trust to mean we can ask hard questions of each other. We can challenge each other openly with honesty and integrity. And when we build these three elements, I work with a lot of organizations and teams who say they want agility and they want to have this innovation, but they don't build these base elements. So as a leader, my challenge to you here is, how are you building the trust within your team? How are you having the conversations? How are you giving them the understanding? Having really open discussions about, this is the challenges we face and we don't know what the answers are going to be. But then opening up that conversation with curiosity and saying, what might we do? And then what else? And then what else? What else might be true? And being vulnerable enough as a leader to open up for everyone, build that trust, and create a culture that fosters high performance. There's a lot of opportunity now, and what we need is leaders who are thinking about doing things differently. We've seen good examples already in different sectors of organizations collaborating in ways that they probably never thought of before. I was hearing of another example where there's certain hospital or medical organizations who are looking to the airlines, who've obviously grounded their entire fleet, and saying, your people are amazing at CPR, your people are amazing, and they understand some basic training about how to respond in a time of crisis. So can we use some of those people? Can they come and work for us and help us deal with this massive challenge? This is where agility and innovation becomes the opportunity for us all. What are the talents and skills that exist within your organization? And how can we look at them differently? How can we think of them differently? How can we transfer those skills into other sectors? And how do we build those collaborative partnerships with other organizations? They might be people we've never spoken to before. They might be people and organizations that we don't even fully understand. But make no mistake, now is the time for us to be agile and collaborative. Now's the time for us to open up, think with abundance, think with opportunity, and look for these ways where we can serve others who have needs. The needs of people in the community are changing rapidly, and our ability to understand and respond to those needs is where our future lies. It's always been this way. It's just now that with the pressure and the tension means that things are changing so much faster. And what I'd encourage you to do is find this new culture within your organization and take with it this mindset into the future. Because continuing on with this view of opportunity is everywhere and we just need to look for it is going to be the thing that not only helps us survive, but helps us thrive into the future. At Empathic Consulting, what we do is support organizations through crises just like this. We've got lots of different strategies we use, and we've spoken about a number of these today. And our approach is equal parts of strategy and thinking about the mechanics that we need to manage, along with empathy and understanding. How do we build a human way into this? And we do this with pragmatism because we know unless it's pragmatic, it's often too hard and we won't get it done in time. And this helps our organisations we work with to execute quickly, empower their staff, and get the executions required. If you have more questions, I'm more than happy to talk to people offline. But the real challenge I have for you today, and the challenge I want to leave you with before we step in and have some Q&A is what are you going to do? Because make no mistake, the decisions that we make in the next few weeks will really shape our next 5 years. The decisions that we make now are absolutely critical. The volume on everything we do has been turned way up. Our people are in crisis. Our economy is in trouble. Our organisations don't look anything like they have before. And now is the time for us as leaders to step up. Now is the time for us as leaders to find ways to support our people in their time of need. So my question to you is, what's your next step? And if you need some support with your next step, then feel free to reach out. I'm happy to spend some time talking with you and sharing a conversation to help us through, because we all need someone to help us through this challenging time. I'm now going to open up for some Q&A, and hopefully we'll have some questions that have already come in. But I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you, and I want to ask everyone to step through this with kindness. As a leader, you're going to make some challenging decisions, and some of them, in hindsight, might not be perfect. But now's not the time for perfection. Now's the time for leading and for taking actions. And I would implore everyone to make sure that we're kind to those leaders as they're battling through these challenges too.
Great. Thank you so much, Daniel. That was really insightful, and I can see how we as a sector can apply some of those models by maybe translating them to thinking about our audiences and our communities and our stakeholders. And it's really good to sort of see how empathetic leadership can play such a critical role at the moment. A quick sort of starting question that I have for you, while everyone is asking some questions in the Q&A box, is thinking about and placing yourself in people that you lead's shoes and being empathetic. As leaders, we've become so accustomed to, or most of us have become accustomed, of course not everyone, to picking up cues and being with each other in a physical space. I know that the people I lead, I can immediately tell what's going on from them by their body language. One thing that we've experienced in the last couple of weeks is that has been disrupted, and we are seeing each other as a floating head on a screen. What have you experienced in the last couple of weeks around leading in a sort of a digital mode? Do you have some thoughts about applying that, or have you sort of experienced that?
Yeah, so one of the things I've worked with a lot of leaders on is being observant of certain critical moments. And some of those moments are that we look out for are when people are entering and leaving a meeting room. Often what I've seen and experienced, and you might have seen the same, is some people who are struggling a little bit can put on a brave face in the meeting, and they can hold themselves together for the 45 minutes or an hour or however long it is. But when they're walking into the room, they drag themselves in a little bit. And when they walk out, that same thing happens. Now, when I work with leaders and they're having meetings, that's one of the things I always suggest that they do. Really be very observant of people coming in and leaving, and what state they're in and how they're appearing in those times. And I'm conscious that on Zoom, you don't have those moments. They don't exist. And so a lot of the suggestions I've been giving to leaders is building far more touch points with their people, having more conversations. And I would say the number one trick in this time is to leave more space and have more silence. And this is a tip, again, we talk about a lot. Some leaders can get into a habit of thinking that they've got to fill the space and have all the answers and be the expert. And they're sort of, if there's a moment of silence, they jump in or they move to the next agenda item. What I'd encourage people to do is instead leave far more silence, ask more really open questions, and be very present in the video as to how you're listening. It's very distracting, and we've all had this experience where you're in a meeting and someone picks up their phone and they're starting to look at their phone and they're not engaged. And we know in a meeting, if the boss is doing that whoever's speaking probably isn't all that important in their view. And it can be a horrible, caustic part of the environment. So I'd really encourage people when they're doing their Zooms and they're connecting with their people, or even having a phone call, have far more touch points, build more meetings, really connect with people as much as you can, because they're not in the same state. They aren't getting the same contact they had before. And also leave lots more space, ask many more open questions, and really look to let your people fill the session with what's going on. The only thing I'd probably add, the third point, would be really vulnerable in this time. Your vulnerability will be the door that invites other people to step forward and share theirs. And so really being clear that if you're struggling a little bit, then feel free to share that with your people in a really, I think, honest and vulnerable way.
Okay, well, we've got some great questions from quite a few people. So again, everyone, apologies if you can't get to all of them. There are some really insightful ones. The first one, Daniel, is from Stephanie, and she asks. So, of course, she asks if your leader, someone that leads you, lacks empathy and strategy in times of crisis, how can someone from, let's say, a middle management level strategically step up and lead or lead up? Do you have any advice around being sort of leading in a different direction?
Yeah, there's one thing I'd definitely say not to do first as a caution, and this can happen. It can sort of seem like, well, I'll ignore them or shut them out, and I'll lead my team in spite of them. And that can be an incredibly powerful thing to do, and your team can feel really confident and start to rally around you. But actually, you're starting to detach yourself from the larger business and the larger organization. And that's really dangerous in these times. What we don't need is organizations with small tribes building and starting to spread apart. So the thing I'd definitely suggest is spend some time understanding what's going on in the world of that leader. Understanding their perspective is often really important. And, you know, sometimes when people seem like they aren't making decisions that you would make, or they're doing strange things, actually it's mainly because you don't see the full picture. You're not necessarily privy to all that information, and maybe they're trying to protect everyone from what's going on in their world. So again, I'd suggest spending some time having a really open conversation. I do a lot of work with people on how to give good feedback and how to ask those open questions. But I'd start by challenging your own views of, are the decisions they're making irrational, or they're not stepping up? And look, there will be obvious examples of that. Or actually, is there a whole bunch of things going on that maybe you don't understand? And so seeking to help them and say, well, what is it that I could do that would help? I can see you're stressed. What is it that I could do that might help alleviate some of that? That sort of service mentality can be a really good way to lead upwards. And then obviously being the custodian of your culture and of your people is paramount. So thinking through ways you can feed that back up and say, this is what's going on for my people, and this is what I think I need to do, and this is what I need from you so that we can serve our people.
Thanks, Daniel. And in fact, just sending him an email saying, how are you? Are you okay? As another thought. Okay, we'll move on to the next question. The next question is from Louise. And I think this is really pertinent to our sector at the moment. You talked about strategies around thinking strategically and encouraging people and leading people to be their best. And some of those ideas. For many arts organizations, as I suspect and as we know, for many parts of our economy, and I'll just sort of, sorry, Louise, I'm not reading your question out exactly, but her question is, it feels though as if we are in a bit of a life and death situation for our sector. A lot of organizations are sort of at the brink of potentially not existing. How do you even broach the issues of how to move forward when people are feeling just so overwhelmed at the moment? Like, what is the bridge from that moment to having strategic conversations?
Yeah, it's there's no easy answer to this. But I would say the techniques that we've seen that are quite successful are leaders and people who acknowledge the challenge and are really clear that this is where they are now. This is the challenge they're in. We see this a lot with organisations I've worked with who've had to do large cost-cutting exercises, and it can be a time when people feel like their whole world's going to collapse. What you will find as you start to step into this, though, is that there's a whole bunch of people in your organisation who are really committed and they believe in what you're trying to achieve. And they know that there's a challenge there, but they believe so much that they want to be part of the answer. And so what I'd suggest here is getting those people together. And it could be as many of your people as you can, but let's start by thinking about a working group and saying, let's get together. We don't know what the answers are, but let's be really clear on where our challenges are. Let's be clear that we have to make some decisions here. And we may have to cut costs, we may have to transform, we may have to look for different sectors. But then going through that process of asking the questions of, well, what else could we do? I often facilitate these types of sessions for leadership teams and working groups. And it's sort of asking that next question, asking simple questions like, who were our customers and how have their needs changed? Who were the people we supported? How have their needs changed? And what are the new sets of needs in the community that some organisation with our skills might be able to serve? So I'd definitely say it's easy to fall into that pit of despair, but there are sparks of hope, and you need to get those sparks of hope in a room and start working together and working with them.
Okay. And listen, there's a few people that ask sort of a similar question around who looks after the leader. And do you have some thoughts around self-care, particularly if we have to carry and hold spaces for people in this time of crisis?
Yeah.
Who looks after the leader?
Great question. The reality is that I work with a lot of CEO groups, and CEOs the CEO can be an incredibly lonely place to be. You know, it can be feel incredibly isolating when you're in that senior role and at the head of an organisation. And the reality is you need support just like everyone else. You need help just like everyone else. And there's two things I'd really suggest here. One is build a network of other people who might be in your position. Build a network of other CEOs and leaders who are struggling just like you. Organise a call or a Zoom and do this regularly. Get together and say, well, what are some of the things going on for you? This is what's going on for me. Again, we don't have to approach this with answers. We need to approach this with a curiosity and saying, here I am to share what's going on for me, and I'd love to hear what's going on in your world. And out of those sessions, lots of ideas arise. These other leaders will see the world different to you, and they'll have some support for you, or they'll say, we get it. We understand as well. The second tip I would suggest to all leaders is to have someone you can rely on who's outside of your organisation for advice. Whether it be a coach or an advisor, a mentor, someone who you can go to and work with in these times to support you through. That's sort of from the more organisational business side. The other thing is make sure you're looking after your physical and mental health.
Yeah.
we need you to be at your sharpest right now. So it's the time to look after yourself as much as possible.
Now, Daniel, I think we have someone that want to join us and ask a live question. I'll just quickly check and see if Laura can bring it in. We've got a question from Anne Loxley. Anne is, of course, from ICE here in Sydney. Hi, Anne, can you hear us?
Yes. Hi, Kev. How are you?
I'm very well, Anne. It's so nice to have you online. You've got a question for Daniel. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Daniel. Absolutely a tonic to be part of this session. I can't tell you what it means. So enabling. But this business of sharing your vulnerability, I've done that in two different contexts the last week, and it was definitely, people were concerned that what I was sharing was a frailty. And this morning in a team meeting, after my, trying to get on a place of sharing and acknowledging how hard this is, I chose not to begin my meeting with my team this morning asking how people were feeling and starting with how I was feeling, because for the vulnerability to be interpreted as frailty is very, very not helpful. I just like some tips on that.
Yeah, it's a tough balance, and I would say that if you're in a group where you have that culture of trust and understanding that's already been built, it's incredibly effective. And this is why I sort of suggest building that culture, not to deal with a crisis, building that culture because you need it in all good and bad times. I would suggest to you that some people, there should be very few people at the moment who aren't feeling some sense of disruption, uncertainty, anxiety, and fear. You must be living under a rock or in an incredibly privileged position if nothing is worrying you at the moment. And so if people are seeing that that vulnerability as a weakness, I'd first suggest that that you probably need to explore that with them some more, and really understand what's going on for them that's causing that sort of reaction. It may be that actually they're feeling this deep sense of fear and anxiety, and they are relying on you to have all the answers. And I think this is the sort of time when you need to bottom out some of those conversations, really get to understand what's going on, and then build on it from there. And it might be to say, sharing it more often and saying, look, I'm going to keep sharing this, not because I want you to feel fear, but I want us to all understand where we are, where we're at, and how we're feeling. Mm. The other thing I'd do is when you acknowledge your vulnerability, I'd also suggest you then state how you're going to turn up. So it's okay to be fearful. I love that there's a quote, courage is not the absence of fear, courage is action in the face of fear. And I think it's that sort of mindset to say, it's not that I'm paralyzed with fear. I am fearful. I'm feeling this vulnerability. I'm feeling this anxiety, but it's not going to stop me from being the leader that you need. And I would suggest getting some people around you who you can have those conversations with and start to build that culture that opens up. It's a tough road, Anne, and I'm more than happy to have a deeper chat to sort of get into the details. But I definitely, I would suggest you not to stop doing that and not to be afraid to do that in this sort of a time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. Well, thank you so much, Daniel. And it sort of appears that might be the only time that we have for questions. We've received quite a few more. I'll just quickly respond to a few small ones, if you don't mind, before we wrap up. There were some questions around that we talked a lot about today around organizational leaderships in an organizational setting. And there were some questions around peer support and leading in different ways and so on. I really encourage you to have a look at some of the other leadership adaptation workshops that we are doing in the coming weeks. There's a particular session that we are focusing on this exact topic around coaching and mentoring. We feel that what our sector will need a lot of in the coming months is good coaching and good mentoring. So please join that particular session. And listen, there's a solid sort of 10 questions that we didn't get to. So our apologies. We will try and analyze those questions and try and find a way of answering those to you. So Daniel, before we sort of sign off, is there anything else that you want to sort of cover before we wrap up?
Look, just firstly, a big thank you. You know, this is a crisis that's unprecedented. We're in really tough times, and as I said, my intention here is to share as much as I can. And look, any of those questions, people who've got deeper questions, maybe even questions that they know that they need an answer to, but they weren't comfortable asking in this sort of environment, feel free to reach out. I'm going to offer anyone here some time and support as I can. So more than happy to have anyone who wants to reach out directly to do that, to go through through the Australia Council. There's lots of resources out there, and I'm more than happy to share as much as I can.
Great. Well, Daniel, thank you so much again for your time and the space that you've created for us this afternoon and holding us for a good 45 minutes to explore this topic. So thank you so much again. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. And just before we wrap up, I might just make a few sort of final comments. Just a quick shout out this Friday. Our next webinar is on the topic looking after yourself and others, mental health in a complex environment. Of course, this is quite topical. It just came up in this conversation as well. Our guests will be performer and psychologist Greta Bratman and Tracy Margison from the Art Wellbeing Collective, which I'm sure many of you know of that organization. But please join us for that session. And again, the recordings will be available in the coming days. So thank you again for joining us today, and we hope to see you next time. Thanks, everyone.